tonight. We are going to give everybody a couple of minutes to get settled in, find your comfy spot, get you the beverage of your choice, a little snack for our time together, and we are going to get started right at about 7:02. So you got a couple minutes to do all those things, and then we're going to jump in. All right, Vol families, welcome to session 6 of our Tennessee Family Series about all things student support. We are super excited that you have decided to spend a little bit of your Thursday night on the week before the week eve of move-in. We're all super excited here to see you all real soon. My name is Todd Cox, and I serve as the Director of Student Advocacy and Family Experience here at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I'm honored to get to be here with you all tonight, along with four great folks from our campus. Before we jump into our questions and give you the opportunity to ask us questions, we want to make sure we share with you how you can ask us these questions. And you're going to do that through the Q&A feature. You're going to find that at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see the Q&A, you probably will see three little dots somewhere. Click those dots, the Q&A should be there. But this is the way that you can submit us questions about the folks that we have here on this call and the areas they represent. So what you'll do is you'll open that Q&A, type in your question and just hit submit. And then we will either answer it live or we will have one of our panelists respond back to you with an answer. We do ask just send your question once. We want to make sure we can get to everybody's question when we can. And so be sure, just submit it once. We'll see it. We get to all the questions we can. We promise. We collect those questions at the end as well so we can reach out to you if we don't get to your question. With that, too, there is a send anonymous button. If you click that, we can't follow up with you where there needs to be follow up. So if you're hoping to get some follow up to your question, we don't get to it, make sure not to click that send anonymous button there. And that's our Q&A feature for the night. So be sure you send us in some questions. So panelists, good evening. Welcome. Happy Thursday. Super excited y'all are here with us. Before we jump into questions, want to give you all an opportunity to just tell us a little bit about yourselves. So if you tell us who you are, tell us what department and role you have on campus, and then just tell us a little bit about that area that you represent. So, Dr. Hughes, I'm going to let you go first.
All right. Well, thank you, Todd. And it's so good to be able to be on this panel and to visit with all of our families and supporters that are bringing students to us again next week, either for the first time or back again for a second, third, fourth time, or maybe even more. But as Todd said, my name is Byron Hughes. I serve as Assistant Vice Chancellor and Dean of Students. What that means is that I get to work with a lot of people, folks that are on this Zoom tonight, as well as people throughout our campus, faculty and staff, other key administrators to be able to make sure that our students have experiences and support and opportunities to be able to thrive, to flourish personally, socially, and academically. There are 5 specific departments that do report directly to me. Our Student Disability Services team, our Center for Student Advocacy and Family Engagement, our Student Conduct and Community Standards Office, as well as our Center for Basic Needs, and our Office for Campus Culture and Community. And so again, working with those folks as well as others to be able to be a place primarily though where our students get to start when they don't know where to go or how to get the assistance that need, and that also extends to our families and supporters too.
Okay, perfect. I will start next. My name is Caroline Marcus, and I am our student body president here. So I'm actually still a student, I am going to my senior year in the Haslam College of Business, studying public administration and economics. So, in my role as student body president, I was elected to serve and represent the entire undergraduate and graduate student body, and I voice our concerns or different problems we might have to administration and work with the rest of our student government association in doing that. We have a lot of different branches and departments I'd love to tell you all about later tonight. And then my job on a day-to-day basis looks a little bit different, but I serve on different boards across campus and so much more. So super excited. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas Bolin. I serve as the director of off-campus student living here, which is a newer office on our campus. It is set around helping students transition from on-campus to off-campus living, supporting them through the search process, answering questions, and just being there to assist students when they need the most help in a very important time, very stressful time for our students.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laurel Lefemin, and I am the Assistant Director for Accommodations within the Office of Student Disability Services. Our office works with any student on campus that contacts us who has any sort of a disability, and we provide accommodations in a variety of different settings. There are, of course, academic accommodations, there's housing accommodations, and meal plan. And then within the office, we have a few functional areas. We have a communications access team, which we have some transcribers and interpreters. We have a testing team because our office has a testing center. And then we have an access coordination team, which those are my direct reports, and those are the faculty or the staff that meet with students to develop the accommodation plans.
Awesome. Well, thank you, panelists, and thank you so much again for being here with us tonight. We will jump into some of our questions now. And so, Byron, I want to start with you on this. So, you talked about how the Dean of Students Office really is kind of a place to start, is a term we like to use a lot, for student support. So, can you talk a little bit more about how the Office of the Dean of Students really works when students want to engage with somebody and what that support can look like when they connect with you or one of the associate deans or really one of the departments that make up the office?
Yeah, great question, Todd. So, with a campus of over 40,000 students and a lot of people doing their work and trying to help students, our goal is to be able to make it pretty clear for folks. If you don't, again, once again, if you don't know where to go, where to start, come to us, start with us. And, our office here in the Student Union is in the hub of our community. What we call our campus living room is how we refer to the Student Union. And so that's the best way, right, to be able to come in and talk to us about whatever it is that you might need. We also have folks that will call us and let us know. Sometimes we hear from families and supporters. We have website pages where folks can go to be able to report a concern. And that's not necessarily just about getting someone in trouble or to hold someone accountable. It's can be about this person really needs some help and some assistance. And by going to that reporting site, that is one way to be able to get them to us. What I love is that we also are going to sometimes be a place where people will pass through. So it may not be the thing that we're going to work with them on, but we will be great at being able to hand them to someone else on our campus that works very closely with us. We try our best to be very engaging and be very high touch in terms of our ability to be out there and about on campus. And, so it's me as well as two associate deans, but then also a host of other people that are here within this office. We're fortunate to be co-located with our Center for Student Advocacy and Family Engagement, as well as our Center for Basic Needs. And so a lot of times things may come in through those two offices, and that might be the reason why someone is connecting with us. But again, because we're so accessible, we don't really look for one way for a student to be referred to us. It can be whatever the need might be, and it can be whatever it takes to be able to get to us. And again, we really do believe in let's do whatever it takes to be able to support their success and get them to the place that allows them to feel like they can flourish and thrive.
Awesome. Thanks, Byron. I appreciate you giving that overview of the office and just all of the ways that all of us that make up your team can support students, but really how they can engage with our office. Laurel, I want to throw it to you. So I want to kind of get the SDS 101 from you. So if a student is looking for accommodations or some additional assistance with their academic coursework, transportation, kind of all of the different services you all offer, how can they initiate that process and what will that look like for them?
Yeah, great question. Our website is fairly user-friendly, and we have all of our different types of applications all in one place. So if you go to the main SDS website, any student, even if they haven't started yet, but if they've been accepted and they plan on attending in the fall, if they go to the current student section, there's going to be an application page. So students do need to self-identify. I think that that's something that's not always clear when they're coming straight from high school, is that that 504 plan or the IEP does not automatically come with them. They will need to contact us. So they can feel free to submit an application. And when this happens, essentially one of us would then contact them. So for academic accommodations, what would happen is they would submit an application. They can call right away. If not, we call within 24 hours, business hours, to call and schedule what's called a welcome meeting, where they could meet with one of the access coordinators to talk more specifically about the student's lived experience. If it's like housing, parking accommodation, or dining, a welcome meeting for that is not required, but the application is also on that same page. The applications are all different, but they're very similar, depending on what a student is requesting. It's asking more specific questions about that area. So really, a short answer is to contact us. And if they had any questions, they can always call or email one of us too. But students have to contact us. They would self-identify for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. I appreciate that,
Mhm.
especially at the end. You talk about the students needing to self-identify. We sometimes, as
Mhm.
I'm sure you all get the questions as well about, are they just automatically going to roll over? And so they've got to reach out. And that's the
Mhm.
most important thing I would say probably for you all is them reaching out.
Yes.
That's step one. So thanks for sharing
Yes.
about
Yeah.
that. Thomas, I want to throw it over to you with a similar style of question, but this time just off-campus student living 101, but really gearing it towards when should students start thinking about living off campus, and what should some of those initial first steps be for a student to start thinking about where they're going to live during year two and beyond?
Yeah, Todd, thanks for that question. There, there are two ways to answer that. The first way is what the off-campus properties are going to make it seem like the students are going to have to start searching, and when students actually do have to start searching. The properties are going to start their pre-leasing process in September, early September. They are looking to fill up as quickly as they can. That is their MO. That's when, they operate better. They feel better when they're more full than when they're not. Just like every other business and things like that, they want the revenue to be coming in and have it guaranteed. The reality is, students can really wait until late November, even into January. This past school year, we've seen students waiting up until May or even June to sign leases because they've seen the market will shift and prices will lower. Now, that's not always a guarantee, but what we've seen in years past, those prices do come down the longer that the students will wait. But really, what it's about is making an informed decision. What is going to be important to the student to be successful off campus? Is it being in close proximity? Is it being with their friends? Is it the wild, wild amenities that some of these places offer? Rooftop pools, rooftop pickleball, you name it. It's probably at an apartment complex somewhere nearby, especially the ones that are being built left and right the past couple of years. But students have more options than they've ever had before, which is why the students can wait a little bit longer and make more of an informed decision, compare and contrast different properties.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate you sharing that and kind of bringing up, the fact versus fiction of what it really kind of looks like. So I appreciate you naming that for our families and those with us tonight. Caroline, I want to throw it to you. And so really want to start out of how can students get involved in SGA? And especially, y'all have this really cool program for first year students and for transfer students who are new to the university. Will you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so I'll kind of give a little breakdown of our structure as we go. So we have a lot of different branches, which means there's a lot of different ways to get involved. We like to say that on our campus that every student is a member of our organization because we do represent everyone. So we also have a place for everyone. One of the most common branches and easiest that's accessible to every student just right off the gate is called General Body. So we have a once a month open forum meeting on campus. That's all updated on our social media platforms, website. I think the dates are on there this year. So that is a great way to just kind of dip your toes in, get a little start into student government. The branches that Todd mentioned are FYC and Torch. So those are both leadership cohorts. I will break those down a little bit. FYC is one specifically for our first year students. And the applications are open right now. I actually started out in that cohort myself, and as well as my VP, and our Speaker of the Senate. So it's a really great program, and they walk through what not only what it looks like to be a leader in student government, but actually what it looks like on our whole campus and how to make our big campus feel a little bit smaller, how to get involved, things like that. And then this past year, we started our program called Torch. It's a leadership style program similar, but for transfer students specifically. And so it is so has been so successful. And they made a guidebook this past year. And this guidebook is made by other transfer students for new transfer students, which we also get to distribute. This year, they'll be doing a little bit more campus type things, and working with some of our other branches. Also, other applications that are opening up soon is government relations. That's our nonpartisan legislative advocacy team. So we work with UT Advocacy. We do state and local level legislation at the moment. And then we also have our communications and programming branches. Those applications will open up a couple weeks after school starts. Programming is our event side, as well as communications being our like digital media team and our marketing. And then last but not least is our Senate. So we have an undergraduate student Senate. It's really great. They work on a piece of legislation. Actually, the student union that Dean Hughes mentioned was from a undergraduate student Senate bill, which is super exciting. So those applications are kind of rolling as vacancies get filled because those positions are also kind of elected.
Awesome. Thanks, Caroline. I appreciate you sharing that overview of all of it, but especially, first year council. And we've dropped the link as well as that and Torch in the chat. So definitely encourage all students to apply for that. Really a great program. They're going to get to have a really neat year, and really a jump start to their leadership, just as you show as somebody who started in first year council and now is the student body president. So thanks for sharing more about that. Byron, I want to throw it back to you, to kind of lean into your Dean of Students advice. And so, we have a lot of families on this call, who are going to be really walking alongside their student as the student navigates, some of the emotional and social challenges and opportunities that they find during their time in college. What advice would you give for family members and how they can be the best supporters of their student as they go through all these new challenges and opportunities that college entails, especially for families who may be miles and miles away from their student for the first time?
Yeah, we recognize and understand, right? We get it, that dropping off your student, whether again it's the first student or it's the third, fourth student, can be terrifying at times, and it's new for them and it's new for you and engaging with them as a student here. But one of the clearest advices I think I've always tried to share with parents and families and supporters is to listen well to your student, right? They're inevitably going to find something or see something. It could be within the first 5 minutes, or it could be within the first week, that is disappointing to them, that is not what they fully expected, that may not really align with kind of what they thought college would be. And they are going to vent. They are going to call. They're going to text. They may call every 5 minutes. They may call every day. Right. You're going to know your students' cadence better, certainly, than we would. But I've always advised families to just simply listen to what it is that they are saying. And then there's an important question that you have to ask. And that is, are you venting, or would you like me to do something about it? Because I think when you don't ask that question of, are you venting, or do you want me to do something about it? It is more likely that you would then decide to put down the phone, whether it be that you're getting this via text messages or via phone or an actual phone call, and then you're picking up the phone, or you're picking up a laptop, and you're emailing me, or you're emailing somebody on campus that you believe is going to be there to be able to take care of that, not recognizing that your student was just simply venting, right? It's not going well. And so we expect that things probably aren't going to go very well. But that's why we are here, right? We know student development. We understand the student experience. Your student. And so when there is opportunity, certainly for us to be able to meet and to engage, it's really, really important to be able to make sure they feel supported. But again, always important to go ahead and ask that call. I've seen many, many times, of course, throughout my career, where the parent or the family member did not ask if they were venting. And so they put down the phone and they got in the car. And 2 hours later, they're showing up on campus, knocking on the door to maybe scream at a roommate or to yell at someone else, to much to their students' kind of surprise and concern and disappointment. So ask those questions, right? And then lean into our team. And, again, I mentioned, Todd here leads our Center for Student Advocacy and Family Experience. And that team is great for being able to make sure they can engage with families to just simply answer the question, right? Or to provide the resource. They have incredible resources that are available, not only online, but through the Family Hub that I know that they will talk a little bit more about, and they've talked about this summer with you. And again, just important to utilize those resources, utilize each other. But again, key, ask them, are you venting or do you want me to do something about it? If they say, yes, I would like you to do something about it, then the next step would be, if you are going to reach out, copy your student. It's okay to copy your student in communication. That allows them to feel like they have ownership because it is their student experience. And you're just simply there supporting and advocating for them. But copy them in and them in if you are going to reach out to us to let us know. Or if it's one of those scenarios where you feel like, we get this all the time. I don't want my student to know that I reached out and they would be mortified, but I just feel like somebody should know we are prepared to be able to handle that. We know how to engage your student without them knowing that you have reached out to us. But I would probably reserve that for those times where you feel like, every single day this week, I have gotten a call or a text message about this particular aspect that is horrifying for them. But again, if it's that first thing when they, the first night that they're living in the residence hall or they're living in that off-campus apartment and they're here, are you venting or is there something you want to do with me, that you want me to do about it? And that will save a whole lot of heartache for you as well as for them.
Awesome. Thanks, Byron. I appreciate you sharing that and great advice for our families. And just all great ways for them to think about it. And I appreciate you lifting up how our department can be a resource for that for our families. And we want to do that for our families because they're an extension of the student support. So thank you for that. Laurel, I want to throw it back to you. So we'll go. We had SDS 101. Now we're going to go to SDS 102. We're just going to keep working through our course codes here. But they've received accommodations. That might be extended time. That might be an alternative testing location. Um, are their instructors going to be required and have to follow those accommodations? And then what are those going to look like in practice if they have the extended time? They are going to be taking the test elsewhere. Kind of what can they expect that to look like?
Yeah, great question. So after a student has met with one of us and they're approved for accommodations, students do need to request what are called course access letters. Course access letters are considered the formal notices of approved accommodations. Students request these for each of the classes they need to use the accommodations in, and they can actually customize which accommodations they need in each class. And once this is sent, a copy goes to the student, a copy goes to the instructor. And as soon as this is received by the instructor, the accommodations are considered active, and instructors are obligated to provide the approved accommodations. Some instructors can provide all of the accommodations. Sometimes they cannot in class, like with testing, for example. That is part of the reason we have a testing center. So if an instructor cannot accommodate extended time or reduced distraction test setting, the student has the option to schedule with us. So what they'll want to be sure to do proactively is schedule that in the SDS student portal. And if they have questions about how to do this, each of the coordinators and myself, we all have office hours Monday through Thursday, and a different person has office hours on different days. So students can hop in without an appointment between 8:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m., and 2:30 to 4:30. So if they needed assistance with anything or had a quick question, even if it's not their coordinator, they can join. But they would really need to submit their exams, the request to take those with us at least 7 days before the exam starts. So once the course access letters are sent, what I typically recommend for students is just to have a conversation either through email or after class privately, maybe during their office hours, just confirming one, that they did receive the course access letter, because instructors are humans, they might accidentally overlook it. So we want to confirm first and foremost that they received it, and then have a conversation about how the accommodations could be implemented. And if an instructor makes it clear, like, hey, I would love to give you the extended time, but I'm teaching back-to-back classes, or maybe the student's taking back-to-back classes and they need to take it with us, making sure that that student submits that exam request at least 7 days in advance. And if a student has questions on how to do that, they can contact us. Our testing center also has extended hours. So if your student is taking back-to-back classes and maybe they're only available after 5 to take an exam, as long as their instructor gives them permission to start it later, we're actually open later in the evening to accommodate some of those later exams too.
Awesome. Thanks, Laurel. Very detailed breakdown, but all great information of what it'll look like kind of in action there. So I appreciate you sharing more about that. Caroline, I want to throw it back over to you now with SGA and tell us a little bit about what are some of the things you all are working on right now to really kind of continue to grow and improve the student experience, to connect with students. Kind of what are some of those highlight things that students may get to participate in and see when they get to campus soon?
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting things coming up. I'll kind of touch on some of our internal projects first and then go a little bit more external. So we have really been working to expand our general body branch. That was something I talked about earlier, our open forum communication branch. So we're really trying to make those meetings a lot more accessible to students by really increasing our marketing of them so they know that they're there, as well as make sure that they're full of open room for conversation so we can actually receive their feedback. On a communication level as well, we're really looking to increase a lot of our social media presence, really push out kind of what we're doing to students each month. And so making sure that they can see what we have to offer and how they can get involved. We also have some really fun events coming this fall. Big Orange Friday is one of our favorites. So we host one of those every home game Friday and have some really exciting ones actually in conjunction with Parents Weekend. So we're really excited for both of those weekends this year. Outside a little bit of that, we are currently working to expand Narcan access on campus. So trying to see where we can kind of put those around different places, such as the student union, the library, trying to get them in dorms if we can, and fraternity, Greek life, sorority houses. So we're super excited to be working on that with you and a couple other departments on campus. Also coming up, we are getting kind of finished up on something that was a Senate bill this past year. So a Canvas academic support module. So it's similar to something else we've done in the past with a wellness module. It'll be displayed on the left side of your student's dashboard, and it is just like a one-stop shop for a bunch of different resources for students that can help them with their academic success. And then as well, we're also working on some things with looking to see how we can start to provide student discounts possibly, as well as our outreach. So expanding to present at more organizations across campus so we can reach more students in order to hear more feedback.
Awesome. Thanks, Carolina. A very exciting year for SGA ahead. A lot of great things y'all are working on, a lot of momentum that you all are continuing. So I know we're excited to see it for all of us on this call, but I know you're excited to get the students all on campus so you can get rocking and rolling too. So thanks for sharing more about that. Thomas, I want to throw it back to you and talk about some of the resources that you all offer because y'all have a really neat off-campus housing portal that a lot of our families may not know about yet. So, can you share a little bit about that, plus some of the programs and initiatives you all do to help students navigate the off-campus housing market?
Sure, absolutely. We are growing every single day. We just submitted, I think, 8 more resources to go onto our website, the institutional website, which is studentlife.utk/off-campus student living. There you're going to find a bunch of articles about common leasing terms, questions to be asking property managers, Knoxville itself, what neighborhoods to be looking at, where do we typically see students living. We also have a utilities guide if you've never kind of experienced what living off campus in the today's day and age. It's a lot different than even when I was renting an apartment a few years ago. So our website has a bunch of resources, quick read articles for students to check out. It also has the housing search tool, which you mentioned, Todd, that is powered by apartments.com. So it is just kind of focused on the area around campus, which is great. It kind of narrows down the search for students. That is going to be just like apartments.com, so many different filters. You want to figure out who has the rooftop pools or who's running a private shuttle, who's international student friendly and makes it easier for our international students to sign leases. You could do all that stuff. It also has a roommate finder, which is protected by your net ID and password. So only UTK students can use it, which is a great feature. Students can list that they have an apartment and they're looking for somebody to join them, or hey, I've got no idea who I want to live with, and I'm just trying to see who else is looking for an apartment right now. And then our biggest probably event is going to be our off-campus housing expo. We hold two of those on campus every single year. And then we have started doing a virtual one in January while students are back home with families. Those are events where we invite as many apartment complexes as we can so students can shop Knoxville all in one place. We line Ped Walkway up. I think last fall we had almost 50 apartment complexes. We also bring campus and community partners that are kind of focused on helping students with the transition to living off campus, the budgeting, the Center for Basic Needs. If we're struggling with our being able to find food, they're there to talk to students. The CAT, or the Knoxville Area Transit, is there to talk about the bus that students could ride for free. And then we also do Leasing 101, where we will go into the residence halls. It's a requestable event for our RAs where we'll go in and kind of talk about the entire leasing process from start of search to, hey, I've signed my lease, now what? And then our last, probably most common event is going to be our mobile office hours, where we set up shop in high traffic areas, residence hall lobbies, the rec center, the cafeterias, and we just answer questions. We make it a really low pressure situation for students to just ask questions or even just start the process of thinking about what they want to do to live off campus. And we're just there to support and just help the students start their search.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate you sharing about all of those resources, all of those great things. Off-campus housing expo is always a great event. It's always packed. It's very high energy too, because students just love being outside this time of the year. And so getting to bring all that together. I also appreciate you naming how there's so many different resources there, like our basic needs folks. You talked about, our parking and transportation folks being there. And I'll plug too that in our previous sessions that our families can go back and watch, we've had basic needs, we've had parking and transportation on there. So families, if you didn't get to catch those, make sure you check the recordings on those. We know move-in's coming up soon, so you can go back to our very first session, and housing was there, and they talk about all things move-in and housing for the fall. So definitely make sure that you go check those out, families, because Thomas just mentioned a lot of great resources that we want to make sure you get more information about even before you come to campus. Byron, I want to throw it back to you. And so want to get your advice on what are some of those common signs that families may see when a student is struggling? And what should they kind of be on the lookout for to know that, hey, it may be time for me to have a conversation with my student about how they're doing? And then if they get to that point, what advice do you have for families to have that conversation and it be effective and it not be that the family member is, like you mentioned earlier, packing up the car, driving 2 hours and getting here and it was just a venting, not a real kind of problem or crisis that was going on?
Yeah, sure. I think, part of it is, again, families, your students, and what would appear like venting or what would appear like there's a real problem, right, that needs to be addressed. I will say, as a word of caution, not hearing from them at 10 o'clock on, your regularly scheduled call, whether on whatever cadence that might be, isn't going to be the thing. But I think you're looking for just, how they're appearing and, learn how to have, I think, deeper conversations also, right? I think the question that is not effective is, how's it going, right? But tell me something about your day. Tell me something that you love about your classes. Tell me something about the people that you're meeting. Those types of open-ended questions that allow you to be able to listen for some things that could sound like, oh, they are feeling lonely, they are feeling disengaged, they're feeling disconnected, or maybe they're trying their best to be able to communicate with a faculty member and it's not going very well. And that's when time obviously is needed for some advocacy. I think also being able to have real conversations with them when you have them, right, in your presence. And we always recommend, particularly for our new students that are coming and families that are sending new students here, that it's always great, right, to be here with them and as opposed to allowing them to be able to just simply come home. So it is going to be very likely, right, between that in that first 6 to 8 weeks that a student may say, oh, I'd love to be able to come home to do this or do that. Well, how about if it is available to you, right? The option is you come to Knoxville, you come here and you be with them in this environment so you're able to see how they're really doing. So again, you're having a conversation that has deeper meaning to it. I think that the fall break and the winter break or Thanksgiving break are always good opportunities to dive a little bit deeper, again, asking real questions about how they're doing in class. So instead of, hey, what did you get? What are your grades looking like? Hey, why don't you open up, the Canvas, right? So again, we talk a lot about independence, but at the same time, we recognize that you're still there to be able to support them. Hey, how about you open up your Canvas, which is our kind of our online kind of platform that a lot of a lot of our courses are using, whether they're in person or online. They're using Canvas as a way to be able to track assignments. How about you open it up so we can see how things are going and talk a little bit about that, right? You get a chance to be able to engage and see where they really stand. And then again, you get to have more pointed conversations about what's happening, about how they're doing. A lot of times I will hear from parents that will say, my student was really, really involved in high school. They had a ton of friends, and now they're not meeting anybody. And I'm really, really concerned. Again, I go back to it is a new place. It is a new environment. Even if they were the top, student athlete or student performer or student leader when they were in high school. We have over 7,000 new students that are starting at the University of Tennessee and well over 40,000 students. So there's going to be a lot of people that are trying to do a lot of different things. So it is going to be very likely that things are going to look differently. But again, you'll know your student. And when you do know your student and you know there is a concern, that's why it is completely okay to send the email, to pick up the phone and call. If you want to make it more normalized in terms of it doesn't feel like it's significant outreach at an odd time, if you're coming to campus for a weekend or you're coming at any point during the week, reach out dos@utk.edu. Either myself, one of our deans, or one of our associate deans, Todd, or his team is available, right, to be able to meet with you to talk a little bit about what's going on. But again, I go back to whenever we're talking about how a student is doing, if that's where you are, it is always most important at some point in that continuum of how we're kind of walking through a student's need, if we're able to have that conversation with you and your student. Because what we often find is there's pieces of information that we may know about or we may have because we are here. There's pieces of information that you will have because you are back home. And again, where we are able to meet in the middle with your student being present to kind of help fill in the gaps, I think is really, really helpful, really important. But there's tons of resources that are provided. If you have a student right now, for example, I think there was a question about this in the chat. If you have a student right now that's receiving some sort of support right now from a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a therapist, or whomever, there are ways to be able to continue that support. And while they may be able to still access that person in a virtual way, they have access to those resources on campus here. So knowing that if you're talking with them and they have maybe been attending appointments weekly, and then you talk with them here and they tell you, yeah, I haven't really kind of prioritized, right, speaking with someone, but that's something that they need to do. That's a good chance, right, to be able in a proactive way to engage, understand the resources, get them to your student. And then again, let us know again in that more incognito way, hey, this is something that they need. So I heard actually from a therapist a few days ago whose family, the student had given them permission for them to be able to reach out to me. And they said, listen, we know this student went through something horrific over the summer. It's one of our returning students, and his family is concerned about whether or not he'll be able to have some support once he gets back here. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's have that conversation, right, to be able to make sure that that level of support continues. But again, you know your student, you know how they're doing, you know how they're feeling, you know when something is a little bit off. And again, work with us and help us out in terms of being able to also be in the know, again, so that we can both address that situation and make sure they can flourish.
Awesome. Thanks, Byron. I appreciate you sharing that. And again, at the end of it, our goal is to make sure the students are able to flourish. And how can we support families in doing that? How can families support their student in doing that? I think it's when we can all operate like a team together, because that's what we are for our students, is really a team with our families. That's how we get there. So I appreciate all that advice you shared and how we do that. Caroline, I want to throw it back to you. And so, SGA, you talked about how everyone's a member and student government really serves as the voice of our students, to administration, to peers, to kind of all the key stakeholders. So, how does SGA really seek to do that? And what are the ways that SGA really serves to be a voice of all the students that make up our campus?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different ways, and it really depends on what the specific situation is. There are a lot of avenues to create change on campus, and so we really work to provide as many of those as we can. I think this year something that's a little different we're doing is I myself will have office hours, so students can come in and talk to me about anything they're facing. And something I'm very big on too is if I can't solve the problem, I can at least point you in the right direction and tell you where to go. I'm really big on following up, and that is how most of our organization is as well. With a lot of different concerns we get brought from students can usually be something we work on through our undergraduate student senate. So sometimes I'll connect students directly with our senators or with our speaker, and he is really good at that. And so that is a very great way to kind of go about that. But what often can start as like one small idea or concern can really grow into something bigger over time. A good example of this is our Canvas wellness module. So, kind of similar to the academic module I talked about before, but this past year was something we actually implemented. So, students had a really big kind of concern about being able to find all their wellness resources in one place. And so we worked with Canvas and our OIT team and Dr. Zambito in order to add it to your Canvas home screen. So a one-stop place for all of your mental health and wellness needs, and it covers everything from help with absences to our 8 dimensions of wellness on campus. And that was from conversations sparked with students on campus about not being able to find that. And so kind of going off of that, most of what we really try to do is help students amplify their voice and finding the correct way and the most beneficial way to use it.
Awesome. Thanks, Caroline. I appreciate you sharing those, especially the new Canvas module, a really cool thing that came, like you said, from SGA in ways that students are able to see the impact of what student government can do when students share their voice, when they work through the kind of systems you all have created and uphold, how that can make meaningful change for our students that we're already seeing impacts of just months after its launch. So I appreciate you sharing all about those different ways. Thomas, I want to throw it back to you for our next question. Knoxville is a relatively big place for a lot of folks. It is a metro area, but we have a lot of different neighborhoods around campus that kind of offer a little bit of a different feel, a little bit of a different vibe, just kind of have different kind of makeups to them. And so, what recommendations do you have for students and for families to kind of find what area of Knoxville makes the most sense for them and help identify kind of where they want to live when they think about the next few years?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a very complicated one to answer in all honesty, Todd, because it's going to depend on what is kind of the driving force of the apartment search for a student. Like I mentioned before, is it the proximity to campus? Is it the cost of what the apartment is going to be charging you? Is it living with friends? Is it transportation issues, not having a personal vehicle or things like that? One of the biggest things that I can say is that each neighborhood, like those, like you said, they do have their own different feels, but just because you go over the river doesn't mean you're not a part of campus. There's very easy ways to get to campus. I know I mentioned it a couple of times in some of the questions that I typed out answers to, but the CAT bus is free for students to ride. They have maps. They go all over Knoxville, not just to campus. They could ride it anywhere for free. The other thing, some of the properties will run private shuttles to campus, so they don't even have to worry about finding the parking pass to potentially find a place to park on campus. They can hop on the bus, that private shuttle, and you could search for that on the off-campus housing search tool. The other thing that we see is what you're looking for in a neighborhood. Are you looking for something that's a little more calm, or do you want to be in the hustle and bustle with students who are, the strip, Cumberland Ave, is turned into just a complex after complex after complex, very high rise situation where a lot of students are living now because it's within walking distance of campus. But it's also kind of one of the heart of campus when students are, going to and fro, lots of restaurants and other activities for them to be participating in. So it just depends on what you're looking for. And a great resource is our Knoxville neighborhood map, where we kind of describe each neighborhood, and what it could look like to live there.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate you sharing that. And knew I was throwing you a curveball, so you hit it well. No, that's always a complicated question because Knoxville's a very unique but a really cool town. So I appreciate you sharing about that and some of those factors there. And so Laura, I want to throw it back to you because some families may start to hear about the peer mentor program that's a part of y'all's office. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is, what kind of services students get if they're paired with a peer mentor? And then if they want to be a peer mentor, how can they get involved in that?
Yeah, great question. So we do have the SDS Peer Mentor Program. I think I just answered a question about that in the chat. We also call it PMP. So essentially, it provides students who are new to UT. So this can be first year students, but it can also be new transfer students, new graduate students. Those are considered mentees. They get paired with a returning student that's also registered with SDS. So returning students are students who've at least completed at least one semester at UT. And this does allow for weekly or bi-weekly opportunities to work together. We have created a couple of activities like icebreaker activities for the very first meeting. And then after that, mentors work with the mentees to develop SMART goals. And then they meet either every week or every other week to monitor the progress. And honestly, the goals can update and change, but it provides the new students with someone who knows campus that can give them that student experience side. So they can get advice from us, which is one thing, but to hear something from another student is a unique experience. And it's also a person who, a lot of the times, they have something in common because when we're pairing, we're looking at disability information, majors, hobbies, just areas of interest. And then they also are required to go to an event together. So it's a way to kind of ease maybe some anxiety to essentially make a friend. And then if someone wanted to be a mentor, once they've completed at least one semester, there's an application for both. So there's an application for the new students. They can complete that at any time. We are currently accepting those, and the pairings will start happening about a week before the semester starts, continuing on through about September as students continue to register with us. And it's for the fall semester, but we do see a lot of students continue to meet during the spring. But then we actively recruit the mentors, the returning students in the spring semester. So as long as they're checking their email, they could also submit an application. And I'm happy to answer any other like specific questions about that, but it is one of the more exciting things that we do. So
Awesome. Thanks, Laurel. A great program y'all have. So many success stories and just great impact stories that have come from that program. And so I appreciate you sharing more about that. We're getting ready to close, but Caroline, I want to give you one more question before we go into closing. And I want you to really wear your student hat right now. You know, you're getting ready to enter your final year at the University of Tennessee and gotten to experience all sorts of different parts of campus life and things that have happened on campus. What would be, based on your experience as a student, like the number one piece of advice you would tell family members for what the best thing they could do to support their student would be based on your experience as a student yourself?
Yeah, okay. I am actually pretty far out of state. I am from St. Louis, so my family is about 7 hours away. Um, Something that I am really grateful that my family has done is they have kept in touch with, like, obviously I call my parents pretty much every day, but they've also given me the grace to live my life. And so, kind of, even when I was trying new things, when I told them I wanted to run for student body president, they were consistently checking on me, like Dean Hughes talked about, but also having those deeper conversations and making sure that I was feeling supported both from them and by our university. I think that kind of noticing that this is a new change for both of you is something that is very important both for your student and yourself, and being able to kind of put that mindset into place of there's going to be changes in both of everyone's lives, and so it's a really important thing to think about. um I don't think my mom ever expected I would go home with some of the funny stories I had. My first day of student government, I fell down a hill, and so I don't think she ever expected that one. But they were always just being very supportive and conscious in ways that you have to sometimes go out of your way to be. Kind of a round, long-winded answer, but the biggest thing I would say is to consistently be there for your student in any way you can, even if it is something not what you expected. So just being open to the change.
Thanks, Caroline. I appreciate that and a great answer to that. And I think just incredible advice for our families of what that support can look like. And I appreciate you sharing what that's looked like for you because so many students have that story, but with that similar sentiment of how their families have been able to still be such a big part of it, no matter how far they might be, if they're in St. Louis or California or even down the road in Knoxville, what that can look like. So thank you for sharing that. Panelists, we are coming to the end of our time together. And it is also storming outside my house, as I imagine it is for some others of you in Knoxville. So before we all lose power, want to make sure that we give you the opportunity to share any closing advice that you have, as well as how folks can get connected to your office. We've got this slide up with some of it, but any other details you want to share. So, Dr. Hughes, I'm going to kick it off with you again.
Thanks, Todd. I was able to spend today with a few folks on this panel, our team is across the area that reports up to the dean of students. And one of the things that I reminded them, right, is that there's no one way to experience UT. And I think that is important for us when we think about our students and we think about, there are some universal things. We wear orange. We love to sing Rocky Top. Most of us love to be in Neyland Stadium on a game day Saturday, but there's a lot of people that don't always love those things, but they still love being a volunteer. So, my parting advice is that think about your student as they are entering the University of Tennessee about the experience that they need to have. Think about the experience that allows them to understand what they're good at doing, what their gifts are they get to give to the university, how they can learn, how they can grow, and just simply recognize that we are all here to be partners in that process with you and also with them as well. Give them space, give them grace, but again, recognizing that no two UT students are going to have the same experience. Even if you are a family of Vols that have, all come here, and you've got maybe some older students that have been here for a little while, again, your new student that's coming in should have the experience, right, that is defined by who they want to be. And again, we're excited to be able to get to know them and meet them. And I hope I have the opportunity to give them a milkshake on a Milkshake Monday. And we have more information about what Milkshake Mondays are, certainly on our website in collaboration with our Center for Student Advocacy and Family Engagement. But we're excited to know you and to see you, obviously, over the next couple of days as you start to move your student in.
Yes, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. This has been so great. On that similar note, something I talk a lot about is that every single student has a different experience, and we, as a student government association, really, really look to support every student in whatever that experience may be, and also have the representation in our org, but also just in our minds as we create different changes on campus. So please tell your students to reach out anytime. We love seeing everyone, even parents and families, stop by our tables during Big Orange Friday and other events we do. So come say hi and follow us on social media. The Instagram is right there to keep up with all of our applications and other things we have going on this year.
Thank you all for spending your evening with us. Thanks to Todd and his team for inviting me out to have the conversation. You all were super engaged, great questions. The advice that I would like to part you all with is don't sign your lease until you're ready to sign it. It is something it's going to, as soon as you sign it, that's it. It's over. You're not trapped. You're locked into that. It's a legal contract. So please, please, please make sure before your student signs anything, you're sure that that is the place that your student wants to live, is going to be successful. And if you have questions, we don't have social media, but we do have a few other ways to get a hold of us. You could email us or call us, email and the phone number right there. We're happy to help answer any questions that you have.
Yes, I also want to say thank you all for asking some really great questions and for taking the time to listen to us. My parting advice would be if you don't know something, if your student doesn't know something, please do not hesitate to ask. I know in our office, a lot of the things we do are very specialized. If you're not sure if you or your student would qualify for anything, please don't hesitate to ask. And even if we're not the appropriate office, we are more than happy to connect you with another office on campus. We all work very closely together, and we truly want to see all the students succeed. So please don't hesitate to ask us any questions.
Awesome panelists. Well, thank you all so very much for taking time out of your Thursday to be here with us for our session. I appreciate getting to do this work with all of you and what you all do for our students each and every day. So thank you so, so much. For our families, it has been an honor to be with you this summer. It is hard to believe that it is our last session, which means that we are just days from move-in. We always have this the week before move-in, and this is always our sign that once we wrap up session 6, It is move-in time in Tennessee. So we are excited to see you. If you didn't get to watch some of the previous sessions, make sure you check those out. If you've got a little bit of a drive or a flight to Knoxville and you don't mind to hear my voice for a little bit, I hear I make great for radio. So throw those on in the car, in the airplane. Dr. Hughes, you don't need to make any other comments about that and my radio preparedness. But we would love for you to check out those sessions. There's so much more that you can learn from those. A couple quick housekeeping items. Make sure that you complete the post-session survey. That helps us just to make sure that we're providing the best programming and education we can for you all. If you haven't already, it's not too late to do the online orientation. That is open for you as a family member alongside your students so you can learn more about the campus and all the resources and all of the many things you've heard tonight and in previous sessions. And then lastly, make sure that you join our Tennessee Family Association. That is how you're going to be able to connect with literal tens of thousands of other Vol family members. That gets you access to programs like our Vol family reunions that we still have seats open for both weekends. We're doing one weekend in September, one weekend in October. Those are going to be great times on campus. You just have to join the Family Association to get access to be able to register for those events. So make sure that you have joined the Family Association if you haven't yet. Families, we cannot wait to see you in just a few days to help move your student in and get them started with their Rocky Top experience. We are grateful to have you as partners in your student's experience. We're glad to welcome you into the volunteer family alongside your student, and so glad to host you on Rocky Top. So, with that, our Tennessee Family Series is officially